The Purgatory is not scriptural. Among the doctrines of the Catholic Church that is often criticized and termed unbiblical is the belief in purgatory. The Catholic Church believes in the existence of heaven for those who lived virtuous life on earth, hell for those who grievously sinned on earth, and purgatory for those who died in the love of God but still possess any stain of sin. Biblical foundation for purgatory. In the first letter of St. John chapter 5 from verse 16 to 17, we are told that some sins lead to death and some other sins do not lead to death. This is the Church's basis for the belief in mortal sin, sins that lead to death, and venial sins, sins that do not lead to death. We also read in the book of Revelation chapter 21 verse 27 that nothing unclean will enter into heaven. If this is true, we can therefore ask if God will be a just judge to allow both those who are grievously unclean when they died, that is, those who died in mortal sin, and those who are sparingly unclean when they died, that is, those who died with venial sin, all go to hell. We therefore take solace in the words of Jesus in the Gospel of St. Matthew chapter 12 verse 32, when Jesus said, "Whoever says something against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven either in this age or in the age to come." From this sentence, we understand that certain offenses can be forgiven in this age, and certain others can also be forgiven in the age to come. Where then in the age to come will this be? In heaven? Definitely not, since nothing unclean can enter into it. In hell? Sure not, since they are already condemned and cannot live there anymore. It can only be in purgatory, where they will be purified of their sins. Purification? Yes. In St. Paul's first letter to the Corinthians chapter 3, St. Paul, in discussing the Lord's scrutiny of our works on the day of judgment, said that each person's work will be tested with fire to see whether they are worthy of a reward. Compare verse 13 of that chapter. If they are not, the person will suffer loss, though he himself will be saved, but only through fire. It is clear from this that even persons who are saved, if their deeds in life are shady and imperfect, will pass through a fiery process of suffering on the way to heaven. Finally, the Church therefore teaches that forgiveness of fault and the expiation of guilt are still possible for the dead through offering of the Mass and praying for the dead, as Judas Maccabeus did in the second book of Maccabees chapter 12 verse 45, and as St. Paul did for Onesiphorus in his second letter to Timothy chapter 1 verse 16 to 18. It is a holy and pious thought to make atonement for the dead so that they might be delivered from their sin.